There is a moment in every transformation when something shifts so quietly that the world doesn't notice, but the right person does. A moment when you stop performing, stop chasing, stop proving, and you finally stand rooted in who you are. That moment is powerful. That moment is magnetic. And that moment is when everything changes, not because you demanded more love, but because you became more aligned with yourself. At some point, you stopped shrinking to be chosen. You stopped explaining your worth to people who were never listening. You stopped adjusting your voice, your values, and your vision just to keep someone comfortable. And without announcing it, without forcing it, you became grounded. You became consistent. You became real. That shift didn't make you louder. It made you clearer. And clarity is irresistible. Self-respect changes the way you show up in every interaction because it reshapes how you see yourself before anyone else has a chance to define you. When you value your time, your emotions, and your boundaries, you stop approaching relationships from a place of lack or fear. You no longer seek approval to feel secure, and that internal stability immediately alters the energy you bring into connection. People respond differently when they sense that you are grounded in your own worth. As self-respect grows, desperation dissolves. You stop chasing attention, over-explaining your intentions, or overextending yourself just to feel chosen. Instead, you become selective and intentional. This doesn't make you distant. It makes you present in a healthier way. Your presence becomes calm rather than anxious, confident rather than needy, and that shift naturally attracts respect instead of resistance. Self-respect teaches you how to say no without guilt and yes without resentment. You recognize when something aligns with your values and when it does not, and you honor that awareness. By doing so, you prevent emotional exhaustion and silent frustration. Relationships thrive when honesty replaces obligation, and self-respect ensures that your agreements come from choice, not pressure. When you respect yourself, you stop tolerating behaviors that diminish your peace. You no longer excuse inconsistency, mixed signals, or emotional imbalance. This does not harden your heart. It strengthens your discernment. You begin to respond rather than react, addressing issues with clarity instead of anger. That emotional maturity changes the tone of every relationship you engage in. Self-respect also transforms communication. You speak clearly about your needs without demanding, and you listen without abandoning yourself. You express your feelings without blame and assert your boundaries without apology. This kind of communication creates mutual understanding and trust because it is rooted in self-awareness rather than fear of loss. As your self-respect deepens, your standards naturally rise. You stop lowering expectations to keep connections intact and start aligning with people who meet you at your level of growth. This alignment removes unnecessary conflict and reduces emotional turbulence. Relationships become less about survival and more about shared stability and mutual appreciation. Self-respect allows you to remain whole even in moments of disagreement. You no longer feel threatened by conflict because your identity is not dependent on constant harmony. You can hold your ground while remaining open, confident without becoming defensive. This balance strengthens emotional bonds and encourages healthier conflict resolution. When you respect yourself, you stop abandoning your own needs to maintain connection. You understand that sacrificing your well-being does not create love. It creates imbalance. By prioritizing your inner peace, you create a foundation where connection can grow without resentment or emotional debt. Self-respect also changes how you receive love. You no longer question it, chase it, or test it. You allow it to flow without suspicion because you trust your worthiness. This openness deepens intimacy and removes the fear that often sabotages meaningful relationships. As self-respect becomes consistent, it sets a standard for how others engage with you. Your energy teaches people how to treat you without you needing to explain or enforce constantly. The relationship shifts from effort-driven to alignment-driven, where mutual respect becomes the unspoken language guiding every interaction. Authenticity creates emotional depth because it removes the masks that prevent real connection from forming. When you stop performing versions of yourself to be accepted, you allow others to experience who you truly are. This honesty invites sincerity in return, opening space for deeper understanding and emotional closeness that cannot exist where pretense dominates. When you show up authentically, your words and actions align, creating a sense of trust that feels natural rather than forced. People sense when energy is consistent, and that consistency allows them to relax and engage more fully. Emotional depth grows when there is no need to guess intentions or decode mixed signals, only the clarity of truth being expressed. Authenticity allows vulnerability without weakness. You can express thoughts, emotions, and boundaries without fear of rejection because you are no longer trying to control outcomes. This freedom to be real encourages openness on both sides, allowing conversations to move beyond surface level exchanges into meaningful emotional connection. As authenticity strengthens, emotional safety increases. When people feel safe to be themselves without judgment, connection deepens naturally. Authentic expression creates an environment where honesty is welcomed and emotional responses are respected, forming a bond rooted in acceptance rather than expectation. Authenticity also transforms how conflicts are handled. Instead of avoiding discomfort or masking feelings, you address issues directly and calmly. This transparency prevents resentment from building and allows resolution to happen with understanding rather than defensiveness. Emotional depth grows when challenges are faced together with honesty. When you are authentic, you no longer fear being misunderstood because you communicate from a place of self-awareness. You take responsibility for your emotions and express them clearly, reducing confusion and emotional distance. This clarity strengthens intimacy and reinforces mutual respect within the connection. Authenticity removes emotional games and replaces them with presence. You no longer withhold affection to gain control or exaggerate emotions to be seen. You show up as you are, allowing connection to be built on genuine interaction rather than manipulation or strategy. As authenticity becomes consistent, emotional bonds become more resilient. The connection no longer depends on perfection or constant validation, but on shared truth. This resilience allows the relationship to grow through change, uncertainty, and personal evolution without losing its emotional core. Authenticity also encourages growth within connection. By being real, you allow space for both people to evolve without fear of losing acceptance. Emotional depth expands when growth is supported rather than resisted, and individuality is honored within connection. When authenticity guides interaction, emotional depth becomes effortless. There is no strain in maintaining an image or suppressing feelings. Connection flows from presence, honesty, and self-trust, creating a bond that feels grounded, meaningful, and deeply fulfilling. Inner alignment is the real catalyst for change because nothing shifts externally until something settles internally. When your thoughts, values, emotions, and actions begin to move in the same direction, resistance fades and momentum builds. Life responds differently when you are no longer divided within yourself, and that inner coherence creates a powerful foundation for transformation. When you are aligned, decisions become clearer. You stop second-guessing every choice and start trusting your internal guidance. This trust reduces hesitation and replaces confusion with confidence. Instead of reacting to circumstances, you respond with intention, and that intentional movement alters the outcomes you experience. Inner alignment removes the constant tension of trying to be someone you are not. You no longer chase identities, roles, or expectations that conflict with your truth. As a result, your energy becomes focused rather than scattered. allowing you to move forward with consistency instead of starting and stopping repeatedly. Alignment also strengthens emotional stability. When your inner world is organized, emotions no longer control your actions. You acknowledge feelings without being overwhelmed by them, creating space for calm, rational responses. This stability changes how you handle pressure, conflict, and uncertainty. As alignment deepens, self-discipline becomes natural rather than forced. You follow through on commitments because they match who you are becoming, not because you feel obligated. This integrity between intention and action builds self-trust, which accelerates growth and reinforces positive change. Inner alignment shifts your standards. You become less willing to tolerate situations that drain or diminish you because they no longer match your internal direction. This clarity simplifies choices and removes unnecessary distractions, allowing progress to happen with less resistance and more ease. When aligned, your communication becomes more authentic and direct. You express yourself without fear or contradiction because your message comes from a clear internal position. This clarity strengthens relationships and reduces misunderstanding, creating smoother interactions and stronger connections. Alignment also increases resilience. Challenges no longer derail you because your sense of purpose is not dependent on external validation. You remain centered even when outcomes are uncertain, maintaining forward motion through confidence rather than force. As inner alignment continues, your actions gain momentum. You stop waiting for permission, reassurance, or perfect conditions. You move because movement feels natural, and that consistency compounds over time into visible, lasting change. Inner alignment ultimately transforms how you experience progress. Change no longer feels like a struggle or a fight against yourself. It becomes a steady expression of who you are, where your inner direction quietly shapes every step forward.